Okay, so today we are going to have an amazing conversation with Dr. Sabina Rai. She is a neuroscience PhD graduate and the founder of Synapse Society, which is a UK-based neuro wellness company that's focusing on nervous system regulation, neuroplasticity, and helping people break through their limiting patterns. So, through her research and her work, she's bridging the gap between cutting edge neuroscience and personal transformation. I am so excited to have her on here, you guys. You have no idea. And I can't wait for us to dive in and explore more of your journey, the science behind your work, and what you've learned thus far for the potential of the human brain. So, welcome, Dr. Sabina.
Thank you so much. It's really such a pleasure to be on this podcast. I'm very excited.
Yes, so am I. Okay. So I love the path that you chose for your education. Can you take us on that journey of the thought process, the decision-making process as far as your schooling, what led you to choose neuroscience as a background and kind of just your process through that?
Well, for me, I have always observed people. I am the kind of person I people watch, I observe, I analyze, and I've always been drawn to that. And for me, the beauty of neuroscience is that you have so many different domains. You have cognition, you have cellular, you have molecular, and you have clinical, which is what I specialize in. So for me, I started off originally doing psychology, and I thought to myself, but this is just covering the behavior, but I want to really go beyond that. Like, I have always been so fascinated in medicine, medical science as well. My mother, she loves watching surgery videos. So I've always been so fascinated what actually happens inside of us. And for me, the combination of I love observing people, I love analyzing, I have so much going on in my head, combined also with my curiosity for what is actually going on inside of us. Why it's not just about our behavior in the sense of we're doing this, but why are we doing this?
Mhm.
What is actually happening in our brain when we're doing this? But also, the thing about clinical neuroscience, and especially my area of research, is because it's medical research, it's translational. It's not the same as just, reading about cellular mechanisms and that's it, but you're taking so much of that science and you're applying it to disorders. And it's so rewarding to be able to produce research with my published papers that can help individuals. Psychiatrists and medical doctors would look at my papers and they will be able to guide their own thinking and potentially the treatment of their patients. Because I did also originally think, I want to help people. I might even go into medicine, but for me, I actually found scientific research and neuroscience to be better because I think a lot. My mind is always asking questions. Why is this happening? Why is this happening? So that's kind of my journey that led me into studying neuroscience after doing my psychology degree and then deciding I wanted to learn just more about the science. I wanted to go specifically into the biology of the brain, and it led me to doing my PhD and developing so much of my hypotheses and research that's helped people with bipolar disorder.
I love that. And I want to touch on the level of discipline and even sacrifice that it may have taken just to get to that point of, being able to be a PhD graduate. Could you take us on that journey?
This is actually something which I am very excited to talk about because it also kind of ties into why I decided to create my business. So in the United Kingdom, our bachelor's degree is 3 years, our master's is 1 year. So I had finished my master's by the time I was 22. And I went to a really good university, Imperial College London. They really pushed us so hard, which is good, but also was very stressful. So I decided to take a break and go to Australia. And then when I was there for 3 months, I decided to apply for my PhD and I got accepted. So I started doing my PhD when I was 23, which is very young. And I remember so much imposter syndrome because of the fact that I went to one of the top universities in the world for my master's. My PhD supervisor was constantly expecting me to just know everything already. But at the same time, I thought I should know everything already because at that point, I wasn't treating myself with human compassion. I was like, well, I should know it. And because I don't, I'm a failure. And then this was a nervous system thing. This is something which I believe is trained into us as children. It's just how society is. It expects you to be perfect. And if you're not perfect, like a machine, then ultimately you're a failure. And so for me, I spent so much of my PhD years from the age of 23 up until 26. I really didn't put myself first. I just focused everything on my PhD. I was so disciplined. You have to be because so many things go wrong. In my first year, I wanted to quit so many times because I thought, like, what am I doing? I can't do this analysis right. Of course, I can't do it right. I've never done it before. Like, my
Mm,
master's didn't afford me all of the expertise that I would need because you can never know it all. And so what was happening was I was demotivated because my supervisor was expecting me to know everything. He wasn't giving me compassion. I wasn't giving myself compassion. But I thought, no, I love studying. I love science. Genuinely, I have loved science since I was younger. So for me, it was not an option to give up because I was like, I love studying. I've worked so hard to come onto a PhD program that I'm not going to give up. So I found it in me somewhere, somehow, I don't know, but I found that passion inside of me because I am a very passionate person for the things I care about, my hobbies, my interests. And so I found it in me to just continue doing it. But what ended up happening was I was very good. I'm very academic and I've always been very good at academia. And I picked everything up. By the end of my PhD, people were asking me how to do the analysis because I was doing a new analysis that nobody didn't know how to do. It was completely new. And I did it for one of my papers. And so the tables turn. And I think towards the end of my PhD, I was more confident in myself. And this is just common with the brain that the more successes you have, it's your brain logs these internally and then it compiles this sort of internal portfolio of evidence, which it can refer to if you're about to start something new, then your brain will scan via the memory centers to look back at the recollection of when you did actually succeed in something to give you the confidence to firstly take up what it is that you want to do, but secondly to persevere and to keep going and to persist. So I think with my PhD, determination and persistence, I'm lucky in the sense that even when things feel like they're rock bottom and I'm like, no, I want to quit, I've always managed to somehow find the strength to be like, no, like this is my passion. I really care about this and I want to continue, because intelligence is not enough with a PhD. You can know everything, but so much of it is dealing with a lab environment. My lab environment was a bit toxic. Nobody helped me, and I was made to feel like I was a burden for asking help from people who were 10 years plus older than me. Because remember, I was a 23-year-old. I had moved abroad to a new country. Yes, I was somewhat confident in my academic abilities because I had graduated from one of the best universities in the world, especially for science. But still, it's a completely different thing. So actually looking back now, I'm so proud of myself and I feel that sense of accomplishment. But in that moment, I really had to just focus on myself and I had to really motivate myself to come through it and be like, it doesn't matter how other people want me to work. I'm not a standard, I'm going to work 9 hours. No, sometimes I get distracted. For me, with exams, I always revised for exams maybe 2 weeks before because my memory is really good. That worked for me. And in the same way that we don't all have the same sleeping pattern,
Mhm.
for example, we can't always have the same work pattern. So I blocked it out. I thought, no, I'm not going to listen to what my supervisor is expecting me to do. I'm going to listen to myself, how I operate. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely. That was so much gold in there, like so much gold, especially when you said having an internal portfolio. I think so many people, especially women, especially in today's day and age where everyone is kind of sort of making their own economy. I want to have my own intellectual property and I want to kind of create something for myself rather than working for someone else or making someone else wealthy. But when they want to make that pivot, you often notice they kind of convince themselves as if they're starting from scratch, as if they've never achieved anything, never learned anything, never accomplished anything. So I think that internal portfolio is amazing. That's such a good point. And so what age would you say that you began to, because we're on social media together, okay? I
Yeah.
know at this point you put yourself first. So at what age did you really decide, like, was it after you already graduated, or was it maybe the last year where you decided to focus more on yourself?
I would honestly say I decided to focus more on myself around the time that I had graduated. So I finished my PhD. I was 27 when I handed in my thesis. And I remember, and this is not speaking just about a PhD, but it's life in general. I remember I was waking up when I was 27. I was around the same kind of people doing the same kind of thing, waking up every week, and it was the same cycle. And I just felt like there was more for me, there's more potential. I would kind of look at people who, I mean, obviously, we can never know what anyone is going through, but I would look at people that, in my eyes, seemed carefree and confident. And I was like, I would just love to be able to, I don't know, post a photo without scrutinizing it, or just do something and not think, oh, but what is someone else thinking? Or this. Because I think as a woman in science, and especially male dominated fields, and especially when you look feminine, because I am always told I don't look like a scientist,
Right.
especially by guys. So when you're told this constantly, and you're always used to other people either projecting onto you or telling you what you need to do. If it's not your family telling you you should do this, it's someone else, and I just came to a point where I was like, well, no, I want to listen to myself. And so I started doing my meditating, which has changed my life because obviously we know meditation rewires the brain. There's so much science about it, which I will go into later. But there's so much science behind how meditation actually works on the brain. So I started doing this, and when I started doing this, I just noticed gradually and gradually, I started becoming more confident in myself. And I actually started listening to myself to a point now where, around almost 4 years later, I am obviously, we still have days sometimes where, we have hormonal imbalances or just a bit of a low mood. But generally, I would say for like 95% of the time, I am confident in my choices and my decisions, that to a point where even if other people are disagreeing with me, I'm like, well, it doesn't matter because whenever I listen to myself, I always get the best results. When I say, even over menial things like an outfit, when I do it myself, I listen to myself, I feel confident. And that's when I feel more magnetic. My energy is more magnetic, my aura is more magnetic.
Mhm.
And it all starts from the brain. And yeah, like honestly, it's from the small things to even the big things, like my life path, my goals. I have had it all said to me, you're unrealistic, you're too delusional, you live in a fairy tale. And I'm like, well, I might do so, but from a philosophical viewpoint, what really is life? Is it supposed to be this realistic thing, or is it supposed to be this kind of, experience where we can achieve whatever we want? There is no answer. It really just depends on your individual faith and how your brain is wired. Because if your brain is wired to think like everybody else, of course you're going to think that the system is rigged, that you have to do this, you have to work a 9 to 5, that's the only way to get rich, that you can never be around certain kinds of people, you can never be the kind of person that's like this. So really, it's your brain when you change it through healing, through meditation, and same with your nervous system. You actually start to realize that you can control your life, and there's no set like system or rules that you have to abide by, you know?
I love that. I love that. So, and that actually brings me to my next question. So, you've spent years studying the brain at this point, at this advanced level. So, are there
Mm.
any beliefs or strong opinions that you held before your PhD that you would say just completely shifted afterward? And this could be about the brain or just about schooling or about yourself, but more so focused on the brain.
Well, yeah, I remember thinking that I was always this kind of highly strung person. I was overly sensitive, or I was just too emotional. But in reality, that wasn't the truth. The truth was my nervous system was incredibly dysregulated.
Mhm.
And that was because I didn't listen to myself. I didn't feel at peace. It's all to do with also upbringing, the people around you. My nervous system was wired for fight or flight. So I thought I was just always going to be like this. And I was like, this is miserable. I don't even know if sometimes I want to be alive, not in like a morbid way, but I was like, why am I like this? Why can't I just be carefree? But then when I actually finished my PhD and I started learning more about how meditation rewires the brain, and when I actually started doing my own rewiring, I was like, wait, like I'm not fixed in this kind of way. Firstly, your environment influences you a lot, and the people around you can influence you a lot. But I was like, the brain can be changed, and I'm a completely different person now. My way of thinking is different. And I'm amazed at how my life has changed. But I didn't think that I could change my brain. That's the thing. I thought I was going to be like this for the rest of my life. And I was like, what a what a miserable way of seeing the world. There's so much beauty in the world, and I'm missing it. But
Mhm.
then when I finished my PhD, I was like, wait, like when I do this meditation and I got into the healing, I was like, oh, I can actually change my brain. And even now, I know that I can continue to change my brain, because even though my life is amazing, I still have so many goals and just a higher version of myself that I want to reach and aspire to. So even there are days where I wake up and I don't feel in the best mood, or I feel like, oh, I'm having an old thought that I used to think, but I know that the brain can be changed. It is just literally repetition and consistency. But yeah, before I did my PhD, before any of this healing and meditation, I just didn't think that you could change who you were. I just thought that that was who you are supposed to be for the rest of your life, you know?
Mm. So you would say that's had the biggest impact on you, just
Oh,
realizing that you could change your
100%.
brain. I love that. I love that. And
Yeah.
it's fun. It gets to a point where, and I think it goes back to what you said. What is your belief as far as what we were put on this earth to do? And I know we have
Mm,
similar values and similar beliefs in that sense as well. But for me, Looking back, like 5 years ago for myself, I'm the same as you, completely different. I mean, even the things that I was desiring, the things that I thought that I wanted, just completely different. And then I think of where I am now, and I'm very happy and I'm very pleased with the path that I'm on. But then I just think about what about the next 5 years? I mean, the 5 years from now, that version of me is looking at the version of me right now, thinking, she was still playing so small, she was still thinking this way. And so it's a really cool thing to think about when you realize there's just unlimited growth. There's unlimited growth, unlimited
Yeah.
expansion, and you can really, do with that what you want. But so let's get into your program. Your program, it talks about permanently regulating the nervous system, rewiring limiting patterns. What exactly does that mean in practical terms for someone who's, never studied neuroscience? What could they expect if they joined your program?
Well, um, I operate on a graduating progressional sort of program. So the brain and the body are always in communication, and the body is arguably the most important, in my opinion, because if your body feels in a state of unsafety and just, discomfort, then it's going to send signals to your brain to tell your brain, oh no, we're experiencing something which is not desirable and you have to be on high alert. And then you have a release of so many chemicals, and it's a mess. Basically, it's very pro-inflammatory, which is bad. It's bad for a lot of diseases, a lot of autoimmune diseases, where the body actually starts to attack mistakenly the healthy tissue. It's caused by stress and so many of these unprocessed emotions. So I always go in my first 1 week of the 4 week program is that you have to calm your body down. We do techniques which cover somatic regulation, and we're just trying to convey to our bodies that we are safe. We get into a pattern of consistently throughout the day, 3 times a day, stopping and pausing and doing 5 minutes of somatic regulation so we can continue to stay in a very calm, just regulated manner. And then week 2 is where we move on to the rewiring. Now, with meditation, it puts your brain into a state of mind, and specifically a type of wave. So you have alpha waves, beta waves, gamma waves. In meditation, your brain enters into theta waves. And when your brain is in theta, it's more fluid and flexible to rewiring. So, what actually happens is when your brain goes into theta and you start to tell your brain in that particular mode, you want to be like this, you're telling yourself affirmations, but not just the general affirmations which actually target areas of your life where you have more limitations or limiting beliefs. When you actually start to say this during theta wave in meditation, you start to develop new neural pathways. So two cells will start firing towards each other when you have these positive thoughts. And what happens is, with consistency over time, these cells, they will continue firing, and that particular pathway of communication between the cells will get stronger and stronger and stronger. And then your previous neural connections that were cells that were firing together, but they were, firing pathways that were promoting negative thoughts, those will weaken. So, what we're essentially doing in the second week is we are trying to initiate a program where the individual is able to get into meditation. 7 to 15 minutes is sufficient enough. There's a lot of research. They enter theta. And then, because of my intuitive and clinical expertise, I have specifically written targeted affirmations and statements for them about the area of their life which they are feeling that they want to reprogram their beliefs in.
Mhm.
And yes, the aim, what happens throughout the week, is to start a routine where the individual is meditating, entering that theta state, and then they are putting down the tracks for these new neural pathways to form, and then to repeatedly strengthen them, so they're strengthening the positive pathways where they're having new thoughts that are positive and more aligned with their highest self, versus the old thoughts which were maybe more low vibrational. So when they're consistently repeating and entering theta state, these particular statements, the aim and the outcome is that they then eventually weaken the old pathways. And then week 3 is where we combine the work from week 1 and week 2, is where I specifically ask the individual, I say, pick a specific emotionally charged moment, not like a 9 out of 10 or an 8 out of 10, but more like a 6 out of 10. It could be like thinking about a text or something that somebody sent you. And then I want the client to implement the somatic regulation so they can calm their body down, and then to implement the rewiring that we did, like the statements, and to enter that kind of meditative state of calm, and then to approach that specific trigger using these methods. So it's not necessarily about avoiding your triggers or about talking about them, but it's about confronting them. And even when we have that feeling of discomfort, it's training the body and the nervous system, the mind, to be okay with a sense of unsafety and discomfort, and that we are okay despite that. And again, this logs into the internal portfolio. I've experienced this, it's okay, I'm fine. Whereas before, if you avoid it or if you have an adverse reaction, even if you try and overthink it to solve it, you're firstly strengthening the neural pathway by repeating it,
Mhm.
but also you're not training your body and your mind to feel calm in that sort of presence. Like, you encounter a thought, you might try and solve it with overthinking, but you're not telling your body that you're safe. You're just telling your body, well, okay, I'm temporarily safe because I've solved it. But then what happens the next time? You end up spiraling into an overthinking mechanism each time, and you can't do that. That's not good, because then you're also reinforcing that particular pathway. Whereas if you don't overthink it but you regulate it, and then you do the opposite, you are essentially, you're reducing the charge of that particular thought and the pathway. And
And
then week
that's
4 we do a maintenance ritual, just so my clients can keep on top of their work. So I say to them, okay, based on your schedule and moving forwards, these are the things that I think you should do daily, weekly, etc., to make sure that you stay on top of your neuroplasticity, what we covered in the weeks.
in week 3. That's the combination of doing the what you learn in week 1 and week 2. That's what you call the controlled exposure, right?
Yeah.
Okay, that's good. That's so if someone were to join your program and they did everything by the book, they followed your directions, they're consistent, what changes could someone realistically expect to see after the 4-week mark?
So after the 4 weeks marks, they will essentially see automatic habit formation. So when they wake up, they will do the regulation. It will feel automatic to them. So they will be calm. They will feel regulated, but also after doing this for the 4 weeks, when a thought or a specific trigger appears, the reaction will be different.
Hmm.
Instead of feeling that sharp pain in the chest and then spiraling, for example, wherever you may feel the emotion in your body, the individuals, they will pause and they will stop and focus primarily on their body and regulating it. And then when that's regulated, to recite, to go back to the statements, to then overpower that particular charge. Because, there's no point trying to communicate to your brain while you're calming down your body. But when your body is calm, it's promoting more so habit formation, because after my clients finish, to them, it's it's a routine that they regulate themselves, they feel calmer, but also they approach things differently. Like one of my clients, she was afraid of failing, and she was a perfectionist. And after she finished my course, she actually was like, you know what, it doesn't matter if I fail, because life is all about making mistakes and it's experience. So we actually flipped the opposite. Instead of her feeling unsafe at the prospect of failing, she was completely happy to go through life knowing that there are points where maybe she won't get what she wants in that moment, but maybe it's not right now. Maybe it's there's something better for you, or you're not equipped that to do that. And so her way of thinking was completely flipped. So it goes from negative, fear based thinking to more open and more calm a way of thinking. Because when your body is calm, you think, okay, I'm calm, things might be going wrong sometimes around me, but I'm okay. And so it's the self belief, it's the self trust, it's building all of that, and then it's building the tools where the clients, they move through their days. I myself, I have done all of this before I did it into a program for others. And for me, I go through life, yes, there are moments which are difficult, but I can actually stop, I can pause, and then I can actually approach that trigger in a completely different mindset.